Hello and welcome to Pages of the Past. I'm your literary time travel host, Xena Arielle. Today I have a book review on a novel I read called The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright, A Lesson in Self-Help by Ella V. Talbott. This book, literally opening it up, makes me feel like I am transported to another era. It is falling apart, as you can see, but that just tells me that this has been through many hands, and I believe loved by many. I wish that it could speak and tell me all the adventures that it's been on. The copyright is 1890, so this is a time machine into 1890. Now, it was published by Hunt and Eaton, New York, which I found out a little bit more about this book, which I'll get into later. But first and foremost, you know what I like to do when I get into a book to find out if I will enjoy it, possibly, and that is the first line test. This first line really grabbed me. It is when I think of you girls that it seems as if I could not bear it. Right there, so many questions pop up into our mind. We want to know why, what happened, who are your girls, what are they going to be going through? So I love that first line, and I am going to say that this book was a different journey for me. Giving you the quick star rating review, I'm going to put it at a 3.5 star. Now there's going to be some qualifiers with that 3.5 star rating. It did move along steadily. However, there were times that I was not sure if the writing was dragging so poorly that I kept turning the page thinking it must pick up, it's going to get better, or possibly it was written so well that I kept reading on, and then at the last 5 chapters everything became intense and summarized. So maybe it was kind of ingenious. I will say that for character development, it is not written in first person. And I am a big fan of first person. However, there are many great novels that are not first person. So I enjoyed the characters that were first introduced. It is based around a family which has 4 sisters, and that of course spoke to me because I am the oldest sibling of 4 sisters. Now, as I continued reading, I did recognize some elements that were familiar from other novels. This was in 1890. I'm going to refer to my notes here because I had some interesting research on this book. There were definitely some nods to the story of Little Women and the story of Sense and Sensibility. And Little Women, of course, was first published in 1868, and Sense and Sensibility in 1811. So I did feel that the author picked up on elements and rearranged them a bit, but the tone, the struggles that this family faced did have many similarities. I will say that if you enjoyed either of those books, I could see you enjoying The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright. It actually is a young adult novel. And this is where it does get interesting. It was published in a series by the Methodist Book Concern. And they were publishing and hiring writers to make books for young adults that were not just wholesome, but also useful and encouraging. And that's where I find the title very interesting, because this is called The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright, A Lesson in Self-Help. Now, we know what we think of when it comes to self-help books. This is very different from our modern day definition. My book bestie, Linda, often has told me that when we read something from the past, or even when we look at history, we have to really remove ourselves from this time and stand where they were standing. because it's so easy to judge from the future when we have knowledge of how things are going, or, you know, we live a different lifestyle than they were living at that time. It's easy to judge when you're looking back. Hindsight is always 20/20. However, I like to open this book and let it take me into the mindset, into the situations, into the circumstances, and from there try to determine, how would I as a person respond? What would be my fears? What would be my concerns? What choices would I make? And there are definitely some major choices that Chryssa has to make, and she, as the title indicates, does have perseverance and does have determination. I will say the reason I gave it a 3.5, as I kind of nodded to in the beginning, is the middle dragged a bit. Not because the writing style was boring. I don't believe that at all. However, the character development was a little bit lacking. I did get introduced well to the family and to the characters, and then I felt like because we took a path where we followed Chryssa so closely, her sisters got lost in the mix, and I almost had a sense that the author's like, oh, what are we going to do with this person? We have to figure something out. Now that could be just my interpretation of it. I am a big fan of major character development. When I go to read a book, I don't want to tell the book who these people are. I want the book to really tell me who the people are. So I was a little disappointed with the character development. However, I'm going to say, even though I gave it a 3.5 star for myself, I would highly recommend this book if you can find it, The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright, simply for its historical value and getting to see something from a different time and a different perspective. Also, just the fact that it was influenced by books like Little Women, which is a classic, Sense and Sensibility, which is a classic. Great books that have been adapted so many times into movies. Obviously, this author knew that those themes and those storylines were something that was speaking to people. And those books are still speaking to us. So I feel like The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright is a special treasure that is not often easily found. I found this in our thrifting adventures. So you can search, of course, in a vintage bookstore. There's always thrift books, eBay possibly, but I would recommend trying to find a copy of it, and please let me know your thoughts on The Perseverance of Chryssa Arkwright.